What do you do when grief and loss turn into the battle of your life? My name is Emily, and this is the story of how I found myself fighting for my home, my future, and my family not once, but twice. After losing my husband Paul to a tragic accident, I thought the worst was behind me. But when my mother-in-law, Karen, and sister-in-law, Brittany, showed up uninvited at my doorstep, I realized that the true fight for my peace was just beginning. Stay tuned to hear how I took a stand, rediscovered my strength, and found hope in the midst of chaos. Subscribe to follow my journey of resilience and find out how, sometimes, the most unexpected challenges lead to the most powerful transformations. My name is Emily, and this is the story of how my life was turned upside down. Not just once, but twice. To understand how, I need to start from the beginning. I was born in a small suburban town to loving parents, Robert and Linda David. My father was a journalist and my mother worked as a nurse. While we were never wealthy, we were happy. Life felt normal until I was 14, and then everything changed. One rainy Friday night, my parents were driving home from a dinner party. My grandmother and I were watching a silly cartoon at home when the phone rang. The sound of my grandmother sobbing in the kitchen will forever haunt me. The following days were a blur. We were told that my mother had died instantly in a car crash. My father nearly didn't survive. When I finally saw him in the hospital, he was unrecognizable, his body battered and broken. The doctors said his legs were crushed, and he would never walk again. He whispered to me, "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I'm so sorry," as he reached for my hand. I didn't understand why he was apologizing. It wasn't his fault. But as time went on, I learned that their car had been hit by an intoxicated driver. I realized that his apologies were for the struggles ahead, the death of my mother, and for the kind of father he thought he could no longer be. But my father, Robert David, was more resilient than he gave himself credit for. After leaving the hospital and adjusting to life in a wheelchair, he threw himself into his work. Though he had always been a gifted writer, he poured everything he had into his role as an editor at the city's largest newspaper. As I entered adolescence, Dad made sure I had everything I needed. He encouraged me to join clubs, make friends, and try to lead as normal a life as possible. We spent time together watching old movies, discussing books, and him helping me with my homework. When college approached, Dad insisted I attend school away from home. "I'll be fine, kiddo. Don't worry about me. You need to spread your wings." I hesitated, but he was right. So, I left for college, studying accounting at the State University of New York. It was there I met Ashley, my best friend. Through her, I met her second cousin, Paul. He was kind, funny, and didn't bat an eye when I shared the story of my dad with him. In fact, Paul and my dad hit it off right away, especially since they both shared a love for classic rock. Later, Paul told me, "Your dad is cool, and you've done a great job taking care of him over the years." I tried to hide my smile, feeling proud but a little shy. For the first time since the accident, I believed that maybe I could have a normal life, one filled with love, laughter, and even a family of my own. After graduation, Paul started driving long-distance trucks, and I began working at the local tax office. We dated for 4 years, and then one chilly fall evening in the park where we had our first date, he proposed. I was overjoyed, but I needed to make something clear. "Paul, I can't leave my father. He needs me." Paul grinned, his smile wide and sincere. "I wouldn't have it any other way. We'll all live together. Your apartment can accommodate the 3 of us, right?" It felt like everything was finally coming together, that maybe I could build the life I had always dreamed of. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was starting to thrive. It was a simple but beautiful wedding. Dad insisted on rolling himself down the aisle to give me away. There wasn't a dry eye in sight. As I stood there holding Paul's hand, I felt like I was living out a fairy tale. But there are enemies in every story, and for me, they were my mother-in-law, Karen, and sister-in-law, Brittany. From the moment I met them, I could tell they didn't like me. "Which is why your father is disabled," Karen said when we first met. Her nose furrowed as though she had smelled something disagreeable. "He has a disability." "He's an editor," I corrected him while trying to keep my cool. "How considerate of her to interrupt. She is clearly not interested." Then she turned to Paul and asked, "Are you sure of this? Many beautiful women from respectable households are present." Paul immediately defended me, even though my face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Emily's mother is from a respectable family. Her dad's infirmity doesn't change that." I could still see Karen's discontent in her eyes, even after I told her that all that mattered was that I loved her. Brittany was as distant from me after the wedding as her mother had been. Just as promised, we settled into a pattern once Paul moved in with Dad and me. I would work in the tax office for days at a time while Paul was traveling. We used to have dinner together when he got home, but when Karen and Brittany visited, the mood in our home shifted. They barely recognized Dad's presence and acted as though they were in control of everything. "What if they become parents?" I once overheard Karen whispering to Brittany. "It's unfortunate that Paul is stuck with this girl and her disabled father when he could have done so much better. Can you visualize the genes?" I was furious, but I kept quiet for Paul's sake. It was getting harder and harder for me to keep the peace. One night, after the very unpleasant interaction between Karen and Brittany, I burst into tears in our bedroom. Paul found me crying. Hey. He drew me into his embrace and said, "What's the matter, mother and sister?" I sobbed. "They hate me. They think I am unworthy of you because of Dad." Paul's face became grim. "That's ridiculous. You and your father are now family to me. If they can't accept that, that's their problem, not ours." His words gave me comfort, but I couldn't shake the feeling that our issues with Karen and Brittany were just beginning. Paul's trucking business began to grow as the months went by. He drove his big rig all across the country and was never off the road. During his absence, I focused on my work at the tax office and spent my evenings with my father. Despite the fact that I missed him a lot, one crisp autumn evening I was helping Dad get into bed. Paul's voice crackled with excitement over the phone. He went on, "I've been thinking, Emily. How do you feel about buying a townhouse? In a wheelchair, your dad might move about more effortlessly. He should spend more time outside. You might also have a garden, which would keep you busy while I'm away." The more he talked about it, the more I liked the idea. Dad was trying to cover his ears when I looked at him. "What do you think, Dad?" I asked. The speaker on the phone is turned on. Dad's eyes shone brightly. "It would be easier to get outside than settle it, and a garden would be nice," he stated. Over the next 2 weeks, we threw ourselves into the house hunting process. Finally, we found the perfect spot, a large townhouse with spacious doors, a beautiful backyard, and a roll-in shower for Dad. We made it work with Paul's income, my own, and the rent from Dad's old flat. The idea of taking on a mortgage was terrifying, but we managed to make it happen. On a sunny spring Sunday, we moved in. I'll never forget Dad's face when he pushed himself onto our new patio. "This is perfect, my dear." "Oh," he said, with a distant look in his eyes. "Thank you." The next few months were spent settling in and making the space our own. While I tended to a small vegetable garden, Dad would spend hours outside enjoying the sunshine and fresh air. It was calm, peaceful, and almost perfect. We decided to host a housewarming party to celebrate our new beginning. We invited our friends, colleagues, and even Karen and Brittany. The party was in full swing when they arrived, fashionably late and with their jealousy barely concealed. As we moved through the house, I noticed Karen eyeing everything carefully. When we reached the main bedroom, she gave me a sly smile. "You know, Emily, Paul and I would love this," she said quietly. "Consider placing your father in a nursing home before I move in here." I felt as though I had been slapped. "I'm sorry," I managed to say, still stunned. Karen wasn't done. "Don't act so shocked. Your father's health is failing, isn't it? He doesn't need this luxury. An assisted living facility would be more than enough for someone in his condition." Before I could respond, Karen walked out, leaving me standing there in disbelief. Dad was sitting on the patio talking to some guests. To my horror, Karen grabbed the handlebars of his wheelchair and started pushing him toward the driveway. "Karen!" I shouted, rushing after her. "What are you doing? If he doesn't want to go to a nursing home, he stays outside, not you!" I was trembling with anger and disbelief. Thank goodness Paul heard the commotion and rushed over. "Mom!" he said, his face flushed with anger. "What the hell are you doing? Let go of Robert's chair right now!" Karen looked taken aback by Paul's tone. Honey, I don't want to hear it. Paul cut her off. You and Brittany need to leave, now! After the incident, Dad and I left, and Paul apologized over and over. I had no idea she would say that. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I reached out and touched Paul's hand gently. Son, it's not your fault. Some people just don't get it. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. I didn't mind Karen and Brittany keeping their distance, and Paul focused more on his career, taking longer trips to help with the mortgage. I split my time between taking care of Dad, maintaining the house, and working at the tax office. The next 4 years flew by, and life became comfortable and routine. Though Paul spent much of his time traveling, our small family enjoyed the moments when he was home. Dad seemed content, spending his days in the garden or working from home. His health remained stable. Then came the call that shattered my world. I was at work when my phone rang and a voice I didn't recognize came through. Highway Patrol Officer Andrew, Mrs. Walker? My heart sank. Yes, I said, my voice shaky. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your husband, Paul Walker, was involved in a tragic accident. Words like head-on collision rang through my head, but everything else was a blur. I thanked the officer robotically, and it wasn't until I hung up that reality set in. Paul was gone. The next week was a haze of grief and disbelief. I went through the funeral planning like a shell of myself. The day before the funeral, I mustered the courage to call Karen. I didn't want her to find out from the obituary in the paper. Hello? Karen's sharp voice came through the phone. It's Emily. Karen, I said, my voice trembling. I need to tell you about Paul. He's gone. There was an accident. There was silence on the other end of the phone, and then, much to my surprise, Karen's irate voice returned. You're to blame, she snarled. You made him drive that truck to pay for your fancy house. You killed my son. I was shocked. Karen, don't save it. She lost her temper. I'm counting on you to give him the best funeral possible, but don't count on us for anything now. Lie in the bed you made. The line died. I was crying as I stood there with foam in my palm. It was gloomy and gray on the day of Paul's burial, which was exactly how I felt. The church was full. Following the service, it seemed that half the town had come to pay their respects, indicating how well liked Paul was in the community. I noticed that Paul's mother and sister weren't even bothered to attend the funeral for their own brother and son. We're family, sweetie, and we'll figure this out together. Something didn't feel right as we pulled into our driveway. I was positive that I had turned off everything before we left, so I asked, Were any lights left on? He shook his head no. As we got closer, I noticed movement inside the house, and my heart raced. When Paul was being buried, were we being robbed? I quickly helped Dad into his wheelchair after he got out of the car. Should I call the police? My mind is racing. But as we got closer to the front door, I recognized the voices. The recognition sent a chill down my spine. Karen and Brittany were standing in the middle of our living room, surrounded by boxes and furniture. When I opened the door, I could barely hold back my shock. What is going on here? I asked, my voice shaking with frustration. I was struggling to contain my grief in the face of this awful intrusion. Karen turned toward me, her face masked with a fake look of sympathy. Oh, Emily, sweetheart, we're just helping you pack. You can't possibly keep this place after all. Paul is no longer with us. I was speechless. Don't worry, Brittany added in her sickeningly sweet voice. Go back to your father's apartment, please. It's comfortable there. The anger bubbled up inside me. I clenched my fists. Go, I said in a low, menacing voice. Go from my house right now. Karen dared to act offended. Paul's entire estate is now ours, including this house, she snapped. You don't have any say in this. My anger exploded. Where were you at his funeral today, huh? That's right, you didn't care enough to show up and be a decent person. And now you want to take everything. You're unbelievable! I couldn't hold back anymore. The audacity of their actions was beyond me. They had never shed a single tear for Paul, and here they were trying to evict me from the home we had built together. I'm calling the police, I said, my voice steady and resolute as I pulled out my phone. Brittany and Karen exchanged a nervous glance, clearly not expecting me to fight back. "You should leave now," I said, my tone icy. Something in my voice, maybe the fire in my eyes, seemed to make them realize they had crossed a line. Karen turned to me, frowning, and as she backed up, she muttered, "Emily, this isn't over. You'll hear from our attorneys." The days that followed Paul's funeral were a blur of paperwork, anxiety, and sorrow. Every day I had to deal with their interference, their attempts to take what wasn't theirs. I kept reminding myself, this is my home. Paul and I bought it together. They don't have the right to be here. Despite the chaos, I focused on sorting out Paul's affairs, partly to keep myself busy, and partly out of fear that Karen and Brittany would take more from us. A week after the funeral, I received a call from a small law firm. My heart raced in my chest as I picked up the phone, terrified that Karen had started pursuing legal action. "Mrs. Walker?" a clear, professional voice asked. "This is Scott Thompson from Thompson and Partners. I'm calling regarding your late husband's will." A flicker of hope sparked within me. His will? I didn't know he had one. "Yes, ma'am," Mr. Thompson continued. "About 5 months ago, Mr. Walker came to see us and requested that we contact you in case of his passing. I've set an appointment for tomorrow." Confusion and worry washed over me. Why hadn't Paul mentioned this? What had he meant? The next morning, I took Dad with me to Mr. Thompson's office. The lawyer greeted us with kind eyes and a warm handshake. "Mrs. Walker, I'm sorry for your loss. Mr. David, welcome." He gestured for us to sit down. Mr. Thompson opened a file on his desk, and I held my breath as he began to read aloud. "I, Paul Walker, being of sound mind, give my beloved wife all of my material possessions. This includes our house, our truck, and all of our savings. I hope that Emily and her father, Robert David, use these resources to care for themselves as I would have done." Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized what Paul had done. He had provided for us, even in his absence. "Mr. Walker also left you a letter," Mr. Thompson added, his hands shaking as he handed me an envelope. I opened it with trembling hands. The letter read, "My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, please know that you and Dad have been the best things that ever happened to me. I'm so sorry for leaving you both. I knew how my mother and sister could behave, so I made sure you two would be taken care of. Please don't worry about them. You and Dad are my true family. Always look out for one another and enjoy life. I will always be watching over you, my love. Paul." As I finished reading, I couldn't help but cry. Paul had known the struggles we would face and had set things in motion to protect us. It wasn't just about material things, it was his way of ensuring that we had the strength and resources to move forward, even without him. I sobbed as I held the letter close to my chest. Dad was also crying as he patted my arm with his aged hand. I looked up, sniffing, and asked what that meant. "Mrs. Walker, there's one more thing." Mr. Thompson hesitated before continuing. "Your husband had insurance on his truck. The whole policy amount will be paid out by the insurance carrier owing to the accident's conditions. It means you'll be receiving a large sum of money enough to pay off your mortgage and more," Mr. Thompson added with a slight smile. As we left the lawyer's office, I felt as though a burden had been lifted. Paul had taken care of that. When we got to our driveway, I saw a car I recognized on the street, and my heart sank when I recognized Karen's appearance. "Oh, no, Sin." Now, I muttered, "What?" Yes, Karen and Brittany were waiting on our front porch, but this time I wasn't afraid because Paul's letter was in my pocket, and I could feel the power of his love within me. "Emily," Karen's voice was sweet and sickly as we approached her. "We have to talk about Paul's estate." I stood proudly and looked her in the eye. "No, we don't, Karen. Paul left me everything. Everything is formal and lawful. Do you wonder why? Because we were his biological family. Please stop trespassing on my property. I don't need you here." For once, Karen was unable to speak. Brittany spoke quickly as she tugged at her arm. They got into their car and drove away. We had a busy few weeks after our visit with the lawyer, appreciating the distraction from my grief. I threw myself into addressing Paul's concerns. Thompson had said, the insurance reimbursement was enough to pay off our mortgage and leave us with plenty of money left over. I was looking through Paul's desk one afternoon. I discovered a little notebook. Wondering, His sloppy scribbling filled the pages. As I opened it, it served as a kind of notebook filled with his ideas and plans for the future, including the creation of a college fund for our future children. One entry was read, 1. To provide the best possible start in life. My heart tightened. We had discussed starting a family eventually, but we had decided to put it off until we were in a better financial position. Reading Paul's personal aspirations, now I experienced a new wave of sadness. Paul, oh Paul. I held the notebook close and murmured. That evening we had a lot planned. I couldn't sleep, so I tossed and turned. My thoughts kept straying to the journal about the unattainable future for us. When I finally drifted off to sleep, Paul appeared in my dream. He extended his hand to me with a reassuring grin, saying, "It's all right. Everything will be fine with Emily." His voice was calm, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me, even in the midst of everything. The next morning, as I was getting ready for work, I noticed a subtle shift within myself that I couldn't quite pinpoint. I barely made it to the bathroom before a sudden wave of nausea hit me. After a few days of this, I found myself standing in the drugstore, my hands shaking as I stared at the pregnancy tests. I quickly grabbed one and rushed home, my heart pounding. The 5 minutes I waited for the test results felt like an eternity. When I finally looked at the test, the 2 distinct blue lines stared back at me, overwhelming me with a swirl of emotions: joy, fear, grief, and hope. I collapsed to the floor of the bathroom, my tears falling freely. The morning sickness persisted over the next few days. At first, I thought it was just the stress and grief, but deep down, I knew it was something else. As I stood in the kitchen, wiping away my tears, my father's voice entered the room. I looked up to see him standing there, his expression changing from concern to alarm. "What's wrong, dear?" he asked. I held up the test, my hands shaking. "Dad, I'm pregnant," I said, my voice breaking as I collapsed into his arms. He held me tightly, stroking my hair gently. "It's all right," he whispered. "Everything will work out. You're not alone. This baby, and Emily, this child is a gift, a lasting piece of Paul." His words sank deep into my heart, bringing me comfort and a renewed sense of strength. This child, this little one growing inside me, was a part of Paul, a continuation of the love we had shared. Suddenly, the panic that had consumed me began to fade, replaced by a deep, unwavering resolve. "You're right," I said, wiping my eyes. "We'll be all right, and this baby is a blessing." Dad smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Now that's my girl. Since you're eating for 2, let's get you something to eat." As we made our way to the kitchen, I felt a sense of hope beginning to rise within me. With Paul's child growing inside me and my father by my side, I knew we could face anything. The days that followed were filled with a quiet optimism. My father was my rock, and together we set a new routine, just the 2 of us, eagerly awaiting the arrival of our newest family member. One beautiful afternoon, as I tended to the garden Dad and I had planted, I heard a car pull up. I turned to see Karen and Brittany standing at the door. "We need to talk to you, Emily," Karen said, her voice lacking the usual sharpness. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing, waiting for her to continue. "We've hit some hard times," Brittany added, her eyes darting nervously. "Until we get back on our feet, we were wondering if we could stay in your father's old apartment." My heart sank. What could they possibly want? After everything they had done, they still dared to ask for more. I walked to the front of the house, one hand resting on my large belly. I couldn't believe the audacity they had to even ask. I took a deep breath, then calmly but firmly responded, "I'm sorry, but that's not possible. I don't want to talk to you anymore." Karen's face twisted in disgust as her eyes narrowed, taking in my pregnant belly. "You're pregnant," she sneered. "You've already moved on, found another man? It's unbelievable how you could do this so soon after Paul's death." I bit back my anger, refusing to rise to her provocations. I didn't want to mention that this was Paul's child. I didn't want my child growing up around people like her or Brittany. Instead, I coolly replied, "Don't worry about my personal life." Karen seemed to hesitate, likely taken aback by my response. She grabbed Brittany's arm and turned to leave. I watched them drive away, feeling a wave of calm wash over me. I had stood my ground, protected my family, and maintained my dignity. I knew now more than ever that I was doing what was best for me and my child. What do you do when the people you once called family continue to try and tear you down, even after all that's happened? Emily's journey has been one of heartbreak, resilience, and empowerment. From the devastating loss of her husband Paul to the relentless interference of her mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Emily has faced more than her fair share of hardship. But through it all, she has found strength in the love of her father, the memory of Paul, and the hope that her child brings. After Paul's tragic passing, Emily was left to navigate not just the overwhelming grief, but the attacks from Karen and Brittany, who sought to exploit her vulnerability. Yet through every confrontation, Emily has grown stronger, never backing down. With the unexpected blessing of her pregnancy, Emily now has a renewed sense of purpose. She is determined to give her child the peaceful, loving life that she and Paul had always dreamed of. When Karen and Brittany showed up again, expecting to take advantage of Emily's kindness, she stood firm. She refused to let them dictate her life, setting clear boundaries and protecting her family. She learned that sometimes standing your ground is the only way to reclaim your peace. Emily's story is not just about survival, it's about thriving despite the odds. It's about protecting what matters most and realizing that you can create a future that's your own, no matter the challenges in your way. What do you think? How would you stand up to someone who has hurt you repeatedly? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of strength, survival, and healing.
I always thought betrayal would feel like a sudden punch to the gut. Instead, it crept up slowly, wrapping around my throat like a silk scarf until I couldn't breathe. The day I caught them together, I wasn't even supposed to be home. My name is Ivy, and I was supposed to be picking out flower arrangements for my wedding. But a migraine had forced me to reschedule, and I returned to find my sister Sophie's car in our driveway. Strange, since she should have been at work. The front door was unlocked. I heard giggling from upstairs, my bedroom. My feet felt heavy as I climbed each step, my heart already knowing what my mind refused to accept. Jamie. Sophie's voice drifted through the crack in the door. We should tell her soon. I know, baby. After the wedding, okay? We'll figure it out. My hand trembled as I pushed the door open. There they were, my fiancé and my sister, tangled in my sheets. The same sheets Jamie and I had picked out together at Bed Bath & Beyond last month. Ivy! Sophie scrambled to cover herself, but Jamie just sat there, frozen. Oh God, this isn't... we were going to... Going to what? My voice sounded foreign, eerily calm. Wait until after the wedding to tell me you've been sleeping with my fiancé. Jamie finally found his voice. Ivy, please! We didn't mean for this to happen, it just... did. I laughed. Actually laughed. How long? Sophie started crying. 3 months, and I'm pregnant. The room spun. 3 months. While I'd been planning our wedding, picking out china patterns and writing my vows, they'd been planning their own future. Get out, I whispered. When neither moved, I grabbed Jamie's clothes from the floor and threw them at him. Get out! They dressed quickly, Sophie sobbing the entire time. I stood in the doorway, blocking their exit. The ring. Jamie blinked. What? The engagement ring. Give it back. He slipped it off my finger, his touch making my skin crawl. As they shuffled past me, Sophie reached for my arm. Ivy, please, we need to talk about this. I jerked away. Don't touch me, ever again. The next few days passed in a blur. My mother called constantly, leaving voicemails that grew increasingly frustrated. Ivy, you need to come home. Sophie's devastated. She needs her sister right now. I finally answered on the 4th day. She needs me? Are you serious? Sweetheart, these things happen. Sophie and Jamie. They're in love, real love, and with the baby coming. Stop, my voice cracked. Just stop. We're having a family dinner tonight, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. Everyone will be there. We need to discuss the situation like adults. I showed up against my better judgment. The dining room felt suffocating. Sophie and Jamie sitting together, my mother hovering anxiously, my father staring at his plate. "We're getting married next month," Sophie announced, her hand protectively over her stomach. "A small ceremony, nothing fancy." My mother beamed. "Isn't it wonderful? You'll be an aunt, Ivy." I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. "Wonderful. My sister sleeps with my fiancé, gets pregnant, and that's wonderful." "Now, Ivy," my father finally spoke, "what's done is done. We need to move forward as a family." "A family?" I grabbed my purse. "You want to know what family does? Family protects each other. Family doesn't steal your happiness and expect you to celebrate their betrayal." Sophie started crying again. She'd always been good at that. "Please, Ivy, I love him. We love each other." I looked at them all. My sister's tears, Jamie's guilty face, my parents' pleading eyes. In that moment, something inside me hardened. They wanted me to forgive and forget, to play the supportive sister and daughter. Instead, I walked to the door, pausing only to say, "Congratulations on your perfect little family. I hope you're all very happy together." As I drove away, my phone buzzed with messages I wouldn't read. They thought this was the end, poor Ivy, running away to lick her wounds. But they were wrong. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. I pulled into my best friend Eric's driveway, my hand steady on the wheel for the first time in days. He opened the door before I could knock, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. "I need your help," I whispered against his shoulder. "Anything. I want to buy a house." I pulled back to meet his confused gaze. "Their dream house, specifically, and I know exactly how to do it." 6 months can change everything. I sat in Craig's office, watching him review the quarterly reports I'd prepared. My mentor's eyebrows rose higher with each page. "Ivy, these numbers are exceptional." He set down the papers. "You've doubled your client portfolio since spring." I smiled, thinking of the sleepless nights and endless coffee runs that had gotten me here. "Thank you. I've been focused." Focused is an understatement. The board's noticed. There's talk of a promotion. My phone buzzed. Another ignored text from Sophie. I switched it to silent without looking. "Speaking of focus," Craig leaned forward. "How's the house hunting going?" "Actually, I'm closing on a property next week." I tried to keep my voice neutral. "The Victorian on Maple Grove." Craig whistled. "That's quite a purchase for a first-time buyer. You sure about this?" "More than anything." After work, I met Eric at our usual coffee shop. He was already there, laptop open, real estate documents spread across the table. "The sellers accepted your offer," he said without preamble. "But there's something else. Look at this." He turned his laptop toward me. On the screen was Sophie's social media post. "Can't wait to start our new chapter. Dream home. Baby on the way." Below was a photo of her and Jamie in front of the same Victorian house I was about to own. "They don't know," I said, sipping my coffee. "They think they're getting it." "Ivy." Eric ran a hand through his hair. "Are you absolutely sure about this? Once you sign those papers—" "They're meeting the realtor tomorrow," I cut in, "to make their offer. An offer they can't afford, by the way. I've seen Jamie's financials." "How did you—" "Denise in accounting. She owed me a favor." Eric closed his laptop. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "Almost." I pulled out my phone, showing him the invitation I'd just received. "Sophie's having a housewarming party next month, for a house she doesn't own yet." My phone rang. My mother this time. I declined the call. "They're going to hate you for this," Eric said quietly. "They already do. They just pretend they don't." The next week passed in a blur of signatures and legal documents. I sat in my lawyer's office, pen hovering over the final paper. "Once you sign," she said, "the house is yours. All renovations and modifications will be at your discretion." I signed. Walking out, I bumped into Denise from work. "Hey, I was just heading to your office. Did you hear about Sophie and Jamie?" My stomach tightened. "What about them?" Their loan application was denied. They're devastated. Sophie's been crying all over Facebook about losing their dream home. I forced a sympathetic frown. That's terrible. I know, and with the baby coming, Denise lowered her voice. Your mom called the office looking for you, said Sophie really needs her sister right now. I'm sure she does. Back at my desk, I opened my email to find the contractor's quote for renovations. The amount would barely dent my savings. Unlike Sophie and Jamie, I'd been smart with my money. My phone lit up with a text from Eliana. Family dinner tonight, please come. They're announcing the baby's gender. I typed back, can't, working late. You can't avoid them forever, she replied. Watch me. That evening, I stood in front of my new house. My house. The porch needed work, the paint was peeling, but it was mine. All mine. Eric pulled up in his car. Thought I'd find you here. Just imagining the possibilities. I turned to him. Want to see inside? We walked through empty rooms that echoed with our footsteps. Sophie and Jamie had planned their whole future here. The nursery upstairs, the kitchen remodel, the garden parties. When are you telling them? Eric asked. Soon. I walked to the bay window, the one Sophie had gushed about on social media. They're having a girl, you know, found out today. Ivy. Don't. I pressed my hand against the cool glass. Don't make me feel guilty about this. They didn't feel guilty about what they did to me. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. It was Sophie's housewarming invitation, sent to the entire family group chat. Join us in celebrating our new home. Can't wait to share this special moment with everyone we love. Eric read over my shoulder. She still doesn't know. No. I smiled, remembering the renovation schedule I'd just approved. But she will. Very soon. I took one last look around what would have been their dream home. In 30 days, the contractors would arrive. In 31 days, Sophie and Jamie would realize exactly what they'd lost. And I would be there to watch it all unfold. You're different lately, Denise said, studying me over lunch. Calmer, almost scary calm. I stirred my salad, watching lettuce leaves swirl like tiny green boats. I'm just focused on work. Please, you're plotting something. She leaned closer. Spill. Before I could respond, Sophie walked into the restaurant, her baby bump now obvious under her flowing dress. I ducked behind my menu, but it was too late. Ivy, she waddled over, Jamie trailing behind her. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I've been busy. I kept my voice light, professional. The restaurant was full of my colleagues. Congratulations on the gender reveal. You'd know more if you'd come to family dinners. Sophie pulled up a chair uninvited. We miss you. Jamie stood awkwardly beside her. Hey, Ivy. I ignored him, gathering my things. Sorry, I have a meeting. Wait. Sophie grabbed my arm. The housewarming party. You're coming, right? We found another house, even better than the Victorian. Everything happens for a reason, you know. I met her eyes. Does it? Of course, like me and Jamie. Sometimes the universe knows better than we do. Denise choked on her water. The universe. I stood up. Right. Well, I wouldn't miss your housewarming for anything. Outside, Denise caught up with me. Okay, what was that? You looked like you were about to either cry or commit murder. Neither. I checked my phone, an email from the contractors confirming next week's start date. I'm just giving the universe a little help. Back at the office, Eric was waiting by my desk. Emergency best friend meeting. Now. He dragged me to the stairwell, our usual spot for private conversations. I just overheard Jamie on the phone. He's in trouble, Ivy. Big trouble. What kind of trouble? Gambling debts. He's been betting on sports games, losing big. That's why they couldn't get the house loan. I leaned against the wall. Does Sophie know? No, he's telling everyone they chose a different house because it's better for the baby. Eric ran a hand through his hair. This changes things, right? Changes what? Your plan. I mean, they're already suffering. Maybe that's enough. I thought about my mother's voice messages. all about how Sophie needed support, how blessed they were, how I needed to move on. About Jamie's hand on my sister's stomach at the restaurant, the same hand that used to hold mine. No, I said, it's not enough. That night, I drove past their current apartment. The lights were on, shadows moving behind curtains. They looked happy, normal, like they hadn't destroyed someone else's life to build their own. My phone rang. Eliana. Before you say no, she said when I answered, hear me out. Family brunch, Sunday, just you and me. And, okay, yes, Sophie and your mom will be there. But so will I, running interference. Please, I hate being stuck between everyone. I sighed. Fine, 1 hour. Sunday arrived too quickly. I walked into the cafe to find Sophie already crying. These hormones, she sniffled as I sat down. I'm just so happy you came. My mother beamed. See, this is what family does. We come together. Eliana caught my eye and mouthed, sorry. So, Sophie wiped her eyes. The new house is perfect. The owners accepted our offer right away. Jamie says it's meant to be. When do you move in? I asked, knowing the answer. 3 weeks, just in time to set up the nursery before I get too big. She pulled out her phone. Want to see the photos? The previous owners are doing some renovations before we move in. I looked at the pictures, my house, my renovations. Lovely. We're thinking of calling her Ivy, Sophie said suddenly, after you, to show there are no hard feelings. The cafe went silent. Even my mother looked uncomfortable. No, I said quietly, you don't get to do that. But you don't get to steal my life and then name your baby after me like it makes everything okay. Sophie's lower lip trembled. I thought you'd be honored. Honored? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. You want to honor me? Try not sleeping with my fiancé next time. Ivy, my mother hissed. People are staring. Let them stare. I grabbed my purse. I'm done pretending everything's fine. Eliana followed me outside. That was intense. It's about to get more intense. I showed her the contractor's schedule on my phone. They start tomorrow. The renovation that Sophie thinks the sellers are doing? Exactly. She studied me for a long moment. You know this won't make you feel better, right? Maybe not. I watched through the window as Sophie cried on our mother's shoulder. But it'll make them feel worse. And right then, that was all that mattered. Eliana's birthday party felt like walking into a minefield. The backyard was filled with familiar faces, all pretending not to watch me as I navigated through the crowd. Eric squeezed my hand reassuringly. We can leave any time, he whispered. Not yet. I spotted Jamie by the drinks table, checking his phone with a worried expression. This is getting interesting. Sophie waved from her seat of honor, surrounded by gift bags full of baby items. Trust her to hijack someone else's birthday party. Ivy, come feel the baby kick. I'm good. I grabbed a glass of wine, watching Jamie slip away to make another phone call. Eliana appeared beside me. He's been doing that all afternoon. Sophie thinks he's handling work stuff. Bookie stuff, more likely, I muttered. What? Nothing. I forced a smile as my mother approached. Ivy, darling, Sophie's about to open the presents. Come sit with us. Actually, I raised my voice slightly. I'd love to hear more about the house, Sophie. The renovations must be almost done. Sophie brightened. Oh my God, yes. The contractors have been amazing. They're painting the nursery this gorgeous shade of lavender. Contractors, Jamie interrupted, returning from his call. His face had gone pale. What contractors? The ones doing the renovations before we move in? Sophie frowned. You said the sellers arranged everything. Jamie tugged at his collar. Right, of course. I sipped my wine, watching him squirm. He hadn't arranged anything, couldn't have, since he didn't own the house. I wondered how long he could keep up the lie. Show everyone the nursery photos, Sophie urged. Jamie's phone rang again. Sorry, I need to take this. I followed him around the corner of the house, staying just close enough to hear. I know I'm late on the payment, he hissed into the phone. The house fell through, okay? But I've got another plan. No, please, just give me 2 more weeks. Problems? I stepped into view. He jumped, ending the call. Jesus, Ivy, were you spying on me? Karma's a funny thing, isn't it? I leaned against the wall. 1 minute you're on top of the world, the next. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I smiled. Just thinking about how quickly things can change. Houses slip away, debts pile up. His eyes narrowed. What do you know? I know Sophie would be devastated to learn about your gambling. Almost as devastated as I was when, there you are. Sophie waddled around the corner. What are you two talking about? The house, I said smoothly. Jamie was just telling me about all the special features. The bay window, the vintage fireplace, the original hardwood floors. Isn't it perfect? Sophie beamed. We're so lucky. The master bedroom has this amazing crown molding. That's being replaced, I cut in. Jamie's head snapped up. What? Oh, you didn't know. The contractors are replacing all the crown molding. And the hardwood floors. And that vintage fireplace. Gone by Thursday. Sophie's face fell. But we chose that house because of those features. Jamie, you said nothing was being changed. He shot me a panicked look. There must be some mistake. No mistake. I pulled out my phone, showing them the contractor's latest photos. See? They're making good progress. But why would the sellers? Sophie's voice trailed off as she studied the images. Wait, that's not... Jamie, that's not our house. Of course it is, he said quickly. It's just the angle. No, look at the address in the background. She zoomed in on one photo. That's the Victorian we lost. Why do you have renovation photos of a house we don't own? I watched the colour drain from Jamie's face as his house of cards began to collapse. Someone else bought it, he stammered. The loan. We couldn't. Then why are you acting like we're moving in? Sophie's voice rose. Why are there contractors? Why did you let me plan a housewarming party? Other guests were starting to stare. My mother hurried over. What's going on? I'd like to know that too, Sophie said, tears streaming down her face. Jamie? He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked quickly toward his car. Jamie. Sophie tried to follow but stumbled. My mother caught her arm. What did you say to him? My mother demanded. I shrugged. Just the truth, for once. Sophie sank into a nearby chair, one hand on her stomach. I don't understand. We picked out paint colours. We measured for curtains. How could he lie about this? I caught Eric's eye across the yard. He nodded slightly, my cue to leave before the real storm hit. Happy birthday, Eliana, I called out, heading for the gate. Thanks for having me. Behind me, I could hear Sophie's sobs, my mother's soothing murmurs, and the growing whispers of gossip. Phase 1 was complete. Now for the real surprise. The contractor's boots echoed through the empty house as he showed me the progress. We've gutted the master bedroom and nursery as requested. The new fixtures arrive tomorrow. I ran my hand along the exposed beams, all that remained of Sophie's dream nursery. Perfect. And the timeline? We'll be done 2 days before their supposed move-in date. He checked his clipboard. Though I still don't understand why we're renovating exactly what they wanted to keep. Sometimes people don't know what they really want, I said, stepping over a pile of vintage crown molding. Until it's gone. My phone buzzed, Eliana calling. I answered on speaker while examining paint samples. Sophie's a mess, she said without preamble. Jamie finally came clean about the gambling. She's staying with your parents. How much does he owe? Enough that they're selling her engagement ring, the one he gave her after, I selected a deep charcoal for the master bedroom. Sophie hated dark colours. Karma's working overtime. This isn't funny, Ivy. She's pregnant and homeless. She's not homeless. She's at Mum and Dad's, probably being told how none of this is her fault. A crash from upstairs made me jump. The contractor shouted down, Sorry, just removing that built-in bookcase. Where are you? Eliana asked suspiciously. Working late. I hung up before she could ask more questions. The next morning, I arrived at work to find Denise waiting at my desk. You will not believe what I just heard. Try me. Jamie's been embezzling from the company, small amounts, but it adds up. He thought he could gamble it back before anyone noticed. I set down my coffee. How much? Enough for prison time. She leaned closer. He's cleaning out his desk right now. I walked to the break room, timing it perfectly to refill my cup as Jamie packed his personal items into a cardboard box. Our eyes met across the room. Happy now? He asked quietly. Not yet. I know you're behind this somehow. He stepped closer. The house, the contractors, the audit that caught the missing money. Prove it. His hands clenched around his box. I loved you once, you know. No, I corrected him. You loved what I could give you. Stability, status, a future. Then Sophie offered something more exciting. She needed me. And now, I gestured at his box. Does she still need you? An unemployed gambling addict with possible prison time. Security arrived before he could respond, escorting him out. I watched from my window as he loaded his box into his car, then pulled out my phone to check the contractor's latest update. The Victorian was transforming daily. Gone were the vintage details Sophie had swooned over, replaced by modern fixtures and stark colours. The garden she'd planned to plant was now a concrete patio. Eric texted, Saw Jamie being escorted out. You okay? Better than okay, I replied. Coming to see the house later. Someone should witness your descent into supervillainy. That evening, Eric walked through the renovation with me, shaking his head at each change. You're really going scorched earth with this. They wanted their dream home. I showed him the plans for the industrial-style kitchen, replacing Sophie's hoped-for farmhouse design. Dreams change. Speaking of changes, he pulled out his phone, showing me Sophie's latest social media post. A tearful announcement about postponing the housewarming due to unforeseen circumstances. Unforeseen, I scoffed. She should have seen everything coming the moment she decided to sleep with my fiancé. And what about your parents? They're caught in the crossfire. I remembered my mother's voice messages, all about supporting Sophie, understanding Sophie, forgiving Sophie. They chose their side. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It was Jamie. Please, she's pregnant. Just tell me who bought the house. We can work something out. Still taking calls from your ex? Eric peered over my shoulder. Not for long. I blocked the number, then opened my email to approve the final renovation changes. You know, Eric said carefully, there's still time to stop this. Sell the house, take the profit, start fresh somewhere else. I walked to the bay window, the last original feature left. Tomorrow it would be replaced with floor-to-ceiling modern glass. They took everything from me, I said quietly. My future, my family, my trust. Now I'm taking something back. And after, when the house is done and they're broken, what then? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the window. A familiar car pulled into the driveway. Is that... Eric moved beside me. Sophie stepped out of her car, staring up at the house. My house, with tears streaming down her face. Showtime, I whispered, heading for the door. What are you doing here? I called from the porch, making Sophie jump. Ivy? She squinted through the darkness. Why are you in our house? Your house? I stepped into the light. That's interesting. Show me the deed. Sophie's hand went protectively to her stomach, her default move lately. The sellers never accepted your offer, I finished, because they'd already sold it to someone else. Understanding dawned slowly across her face. No, you didn't. I pulled out my keys, dangling them in the moonlight. Want a tour? She followed me inside, gasping at each renovation. The exposed brick she'd loved was now covered in sleek white paint. The vintage staircase had been replaced with modern floating steps. You're destroying it, she whispered. I'm making it mine. Eric hung back, watching us circle each other like wary cats. Sophie's eyes were red-rimmed, her designer dress wrinkled. "Why?" Her voice cracked. "To hurt me? Why did you sleep with my fiancé?" I countered. "To hurt me." "I loved him. I still love him, even after—" She choked back a sob. "Did you get him fired too?" "Jamie got himself fired, just like he got himself into gambling debt. He was trying to buy this house for us." She gestured at the gutted rooms. "For our family." "Your family?" I laughed. "You mean the family you built on the ruins of mine?" Sophie sank onto a dusty contractor's stool. "I never meant to fall in love with him, but you did, and instead of walking away, you took everything." I moved closer. "My fiancé, my future, our parents' support. You took it all with a smile, then expected me to celebrate your happiness. Mom and Dad still love you. They tolerate me. They love you. The pregnant daughter, the victim, the one who needs protecting." Eric cleared his throat. "Ivy, no." I turned back to Sophie. "You want to know the best part? Jamie was planning to sell this house behind your back, to pay his debts." She shook her head. "You're lying. Check his phone. Check the messages from his bookie. Ask him about the company money he stole." Sophie's face crumpled. "Stop it. The perfect life you stole from me. It's falling apart, and I get to watch. I'm your sister. You stopped being my sister the moment you chose him over me." A loud crash from upstairs made us all jump. The contractor appeared at the top of the stairs. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to discuss the nursery demolition scheduled for tomorrow." Sophie stood up so quickly she stumbled. Eric caught her arm. "You're destroying the nursery." Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's my house." I shrugged. "I can do whatever I want with it." She reached for her phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling Mom. Go ahead. Tell her how the sister she thinks is bitter and lonely actually owns your dream home. Tell her how your perfect husband is a thief and a gambler. Tell her everything." Instead of dialing, Sophie sank to the floor, sobbing. Eric shot me a concerned look. "Maybe we should get her out of my house. Good idea." But as I moved to help her up, Sophie grabbed my arm. "Please, we can fix this. All of it. I'll leave Jamie. I'll tell Mom and Dad the truth. Just, please don't take our home." For a moment, I wavered. She looked so small, so broken. My little sister, the one I'd protected since childhood. Then I remembered finding her in my bed with Jamie. Remembered her pregnancy announcement at my cancelled wedding venue. Remembered every family dinner where she played the victim while I was cast as the villain. "You're home." I stepped back. "This was supposed to be my home. With Jamie. Before you took that future and made it yours. Ivy, get out." When she didn't move, I raised my voice. "Get out!" Eric helped her up, guiding her toward the door. She paused in the doorway, one hand on her stomach. "You know what's worse than having something stolen from you?" she asked quietly. "Becoming the kind of person who enjoys stealing from others." The door closed behind them with a final click. I stood in my gutted house, listening to Sophie's car start up and drive away. My phone buzzed. A text from the contractor. "Nursery demolition still on for tomorrow." I stared at the message for a long moment, Sophie's words echoing in my head. Then I typed back, "Proceed as planned." Because some wounds run too deep for mercy. The morning of Sophie's housewarming party dawned bright and clear. I watched from my bedroom window as the bulldozer rolled up the driveway right on schedule. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. First Eric, "Are you sure about this?" Then Eliana, "Sophie's decorating the house right now. She has no idea." Finally my mother, "Please don't do anything foolish today." I didn't respond to any of them. At exactly noon, cars began arriving. I recognized them all. Family, friends, colleagues. Sophie had invited everyone to witness her perfect life. "Ready?" Eric asked, appearing beside me. I straightened my blazer and grabbed the envelope from my desk. "Time to crash a party." We walked across the street just as Sophie was welcoming guests on the front porch. She froze when she saw me. "You're not supposed to be here." "Actually," I smiled, "you're not supposed to be here." The bulldozer's engine roared to life. Sophie spun around, her face draining of color as it approached the pristine front lawn. "What's happening?" My mother pushed through the crowd. "Ivy, what have you done?" I pulled the papers from my envelope. "I'm renovating my property." "Your—" Jamie appeared, looking haggard. "What do you mean, your property? She owns it." Eric's voice carried across the suddenly silent gathering. "She bought it months ago." Sophie swayed on her feet. But we signed the papers yesterday. The realtor—" "Show me." I held out my hand. "Show me these papers." Jamie stepped forward. "I have them right here." "No," Sophie interrupted. "You said you had them, but I never saw them. I never actually signed anything, did I?" The bulldozer inched closer to the freshly planted garden. "Jamie," Sophie's voice rose, "did you lie about the papers too?" He backed away. "I can explain." "Explain what?" I pulled out another document. "The gambling debts? The embezzlement? Or how you plan to sell this house, my house, to pay it all off?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother pressed a hand to her chest. "That's not true," she whispered. "Jamie would never—" "Check his phone," I suggested. "Or better yet, ask his bookie. He's right there." I pointed to a man hovering at the edge of the gathering, who quickly turned and hurried away. Jamie lunged for his car, but Eric blocked his path. "Running again?" "You did this," Jamie snarled at me. "You set me up." "No." I handed the eviction notice to Sophie. "You did this to yourself, just like you did this to her." Sophie stared at the paper, tears splashing onto the legal text. "All those renovations, you knew, the whole time." "I bought this house the day after you announced your pregnancy." I turned to address the stunned crowd. "The day I learned my sister and ex-fiancé had been sleeping together for months." "Ivy," my mother stepped forward, "this is cruel." "Cruel?" I laughed. "Was it cruel when you told me to be happy for them? When you celebrated their betrayal? When you made me the villain for not forgiving them?" The bulldozer's blade touched the first flower bed. Sophie screamed, "Stop it, please!" "Why should I?" I moved closer. "You didn't stop when I begged you to, when I asked why my sister would do this to me." "I'm sorry." She fell to her knees, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, Ivy. Please don't destroy our home." "It was never your home," I signaled the bulldozer driver. "It was my future you destroyed. Now I'm just returning the favor." Jamie tried to run again, but two men in suits blocked his path. "James Fletcher?" One flashed a badge. "We need to discuss some financial discrepancies at your former workplace." As they led Jamie away, Sophie crumpled the eviction notice in her fists. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my problem." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Sophie, don't name your baby after me. She deserves better than that." The crowd parted as I walked away, whispers following in my wake. I heard my mother calling my name, heard Sophie's sobs, heard the bulldozer's engine growling. Eric caught up with me at the sidewalk. "Well, that was justified." I was going to say intense. He glanced back at the chaos we'd left behind. "Feel better?" I watched as my family's perfect facade crumbled, just like the house would soon crumble. Sophie being led away by our parents, Jamie in custody, the party guests fleeing the scene. "Ask me tomorrow," I said, and walked away from the ruins of both our dreams. Behind me, the bulldozer began its work. The demolition dust had barely settled when Eliana found me sitting on my front porch, watching the sun set behind the partially destroyed Victorian. "Everyone's looking for you," she said, settling beside me. "Let them look." She handed me a cup of coffee. "Jamie's being held without bail. Sophie's at the hospital. Stress triggered early contractions." The coffee burned my tongue, but I welcomed the pain. It felt real, grounding. "Did you know," I said, "that I used to imagine my whole life in this house? Sunday dinners, Christmas mornings, kids running up and down those stairs. And now? Now I'm going to sell it, as is." I gestured at the demolished garden, the exposed beams, the chaos I'd created. "Let someone else build something new from the wreckage." My phone lit up, my mother calling again. This time I answered. Where are you? She demanded. Home. This isn't funny, Ivy. Your sister needs you. No, I said quietly. She doesn't, and neither do you. I hung up as Eric's car pulled into the driveway. He carried a box of my old photos, the ones I'd left at my parents' house. Your mum dropped these off at my place, he said. Think she was hoping to find you there. I pulled out a photo, Sophie and me as kids, matching Halloween costumes. We used to be inseparable. People change. No, I crumpled the photo. People reveal who they really are. Eliana's phone buzzed. She read the message, then looked at me carefully. Sophie lost the baby. The words hung in the air like the demolition dust. I waited to feel satisfaction, victory, something. Instead, I felt hollow. Ivy, Eric touched my arm. Talk to us. I wanted them to hurt like I hurt. I stared at the ruined house. But this isn't what I wanted. What did you want? I don't know anymore. Headlights swept across the lawn as another car approached. Sophie stepped out, looking pale and small in her hospital gown. You shouldn't be here, Eliana started, but Sophie held up a hand. I need to say something. I stood, facing my sister across the debris-strewn yard. She looked at the destruction around us, then back at me. I deserved this, she said softly. All of it. I destroyed your life because I was jealous. You had everything. The perfect fiancé, the perfect future. I wanted to prove I could take it all away. Sophie, let me finish. She wrapped her arms around herself. I told myself it was love, that Jamie and I were meant to be. But really, I just wanted to win. To be the sister everyone chose for once. They always chose you. No. She shook her head. They needed to take care of me because I was a mess. But you were the strong one, the successful one, the one they were proud of. I looked at the house, really looked at it, the demolished parts, the renovations, the ruins I'd created to make them suffer. I became exactly what they thought I was, I whispered, bitter, vengeful, cruel. We both did. Sophie wiped her eyes. I lost everything today. Jamie, the baby, our parents' trust. But the worst part, I lost you long before that, the day I decided my jealousy was more important than my sister. Eric and Eliana backed away, giving us space. In the growing darkness, Sophie and I stood among the ruins of both our lives. I can't forgive you, I said finally. I know. But I don't want to hate you anymore. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. What happens now? I looked at the bulldozer, still waiting for tomorrow's demolition. At the house that had become a monument to revenge rather than healing. Now, I said, we both start over, separately. Will you ever talk to me again? Maybe. Someday. When it doesn't hurt to look at you. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, or because everything fell apart, but because I broke something that can never be fixed. I watched her drive away, then turned to Eric and Eliana. Call the contractor. Tell him to stop the demolition. You're keeping the house? Eric asked. No. I took one last look at the Victorian. My dream home. My instrument of revenge. My prison of bitterness. I'm going to restore it. Not for Sophie. Not for revenge. But for me. Then I'm selling it and moving somewhere new. Running away? Eliana asked. No. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. Moving forward. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's rebuilding yourself from the ruins others left behind.
I stood in front of our bedroom mirror, smoothing down my anniversary dress and practicing my smile. 6 years of marriage, and I still got butterflies thinking about surprising Travis with the romantic dinner I'd planned. The irony of what happened next still makes my stomach turn. My name is Blair, and this is the story of how my husband left me for my cousin on our anniversary, and how it became the best thing that ever happened to me. Blair? Travis's voice drifted up from downstairs. Can you come down for a minute? Something in his tone made me pause. 15 years together, and I knew every inflection of his voice. This wasn't his excited anniversary tone. This was his "we need to talk" voice. I descended the stairs slowly, my heels clicking against the hardwood. Travis stood in our living room, hands shoved deep in his pockets, and there, perched on our cream leather sofa like she belonged there, sat my cousin Layla. "What's going on?" I asked, though a cold feeling was already spreading through my chest. Travis cleared his throat. "Blair, we need to talk." "On our anniversary?" I meant it to sound light, but my voice cracked. "I'm in love with Layla," he blurted out. The room went silent. I could hear the tick of the grandfather clock Travis's parents had given us as a wedding gift. Tick, tick, tick. "How long?" The question came out surprisingly steady. Layla spoke up, her voice small. 8 months. 8 months. While I was planning our anniversary dinner, while we were having Sunday dinners with my family, while Layla was helping me pick out Travis's birthday gift, they were sneaking around behind my back. "I'm moving out today," Travis continued. "I've already packed my things." That's when I noticed the suitcases by the door. He'd planned this, waited for this moment. "Blair, say something," Layla pleaded, reaching for my hand. I pulled back sharply. "Don't touch me." "We never meant to hurt you," Travis said, running his hands through his hair, a nervous habit I once found endearing. "It just happened." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me. "It just happened? For 8 months?" "I know this is a shock," Travis started. "A shock," I interrupted. "A shock is finding out you ate the last cookie. This is... I gestured between them, words failing me. "We want to do this right," Layla said, standing up. "That's why we're telling you now." "On our anniversary?" I turned to Travis. "Was that your idea or hers?" He had the decency to look ashamed. I thought, a clean break. "Clean?" I laughed again, and this time it sounded slightly hysterical. "There's nothing clean about this." I walked to the window, needing space, needing air. Outside, life went on normally. Mrs. Peterson walked her dog. Kids rode their bikes. The world hadn't stopped spinning just because mine had imploded. "I'll get my things," Travis mumbled, heading upstairs. Layla hovered uncertainly. "Blair, I hope someday you can forgive." "Stop." I turned to face her. "Just stop. You don't get to hope for anything from me anymore." She flinched but stayed put. "We're family." "We're family," I corrected. "Now you're just the woman who slept with my husband." Travis came back down, more bags in hand. The sight of him packing up his life so efficiently made something snap inside me. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "I spent weeks planning tonight. Made reservations at Bella's, bought a new dress, wrapped your gift." I gestured to the silver-wrapped package on the coffee table. "Go ahead, open it." "Blair, I don't think—" "Open it." With trembling fingers, he unwrapped the package. Inside was a leather-bound journal filled with photographs and memories from our 15 years together. On the last page, I'd written about my hopes for our future. "I was going to tell you tonight that I'm ready," I said softly. "Ready for the baby we've been talking about." The color drained from his face. Layla made a choked sound. "But I guess everything happens for a reason, right?" I walked to the door and held it open. "Goodbye, Travis." They left quietly, Travis pausing at the threshold. "I really am sorry." I met his eyes. "Not as sorry as you're going to be." The door clicked shut behind them, and I stood there, alone in the house we'd built together. The grandfather clock kept ticking. Outside, a kid laughed. And somewhere deep inside me, something shifted. I picked up my phone and dialed. "Hey, Peyton. Remember that women's advocacy program we used to talk about? I think it's time." "You're doing what?" Peyton nearly spat out her coffee across the cafe table. 2 weeks had passed since my world imploded, and I was done wallowing. "Starting the advocacy program," I repeated, sliding my laptop around to show her the rough business plan I'd drafted. "Remember how we used to talk about this in college? Supporting women through career transitions, divorce, domestic violence?" Peyton leaned forward, scanning the document. "Of course I remember. But Blair, honey, are you sure this is the right time? You just found out about Travis and what better time, I interrupted. I've got nothing holding me back now. No husband telling me to play it safe with my career, no family obligations keeping me from taking risks. Speaking of family, Peyton hesitated. Have you talked to anyone besides Layla and Travis? I stirred my untouched latte. My sister Nadine's been checking in daily. Mom's alternating between wanting to kill Travis and trying to set me up with her dentist's son. Dad's, well, being dad, quiet, supportive, probably plotting Travis's mysterious disappearance. And Annika? Has she reached out? Layla's sister sent me a text. Said she had no idea what was happening and she's disgusted with both of them. I pulled up the message on my phone. Actually, she might be a good resource for the program. She works in social services. You're really serious about this, aren't you? Dead serious. I opened another document. I've already found a potential space to rent. It's that old community center on Oak Street. They're practically giving it away because it needs renovation. Peyton's eyes widened. Blair, that's going to take serious money. I know. That's why I've set up a meeting with Eric Henry. The Eric Henry? The philanthropist? I nodded. He funds women's initiatives. I reached out through LinkedIn, and his assistant actually responded. Meeting's tomorrow. Holy shit. Peyton sat back. You're not messing around. No, I'm not. I closed my laptop. Travis and Layla thought they were writing the end of my story. They're not. They're just the catalyst for the beginning. My phone buzzed. Another text from Nadine. Heads up. Mom's on the warpath. Layla showed up at her book club. Oh God, I groaned, showing Peyton the message. Want to go watch the drama unfold? Actually, yes. I grabbed my coat. But first, help me pick out an outfit for tomorrow's meeting. If I'm going to convince Eric Henry to fund this program, I need to look the part. The next day, I sat in Eric Henry's sleek downtown office, trying not to fidget in my new blazer. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through my professional facade. So, Ms. Rogers, he began, tell me why this program matters to you. I took a deep breath. Because 2 weeks ago, my husband left me for my cousin on our anniversary. His eyebrows shot up. That's certainly direct. I'm not telling you this for sympathy, I continued. I'm telling you because in the aftermath, I realized something. Women need support systems. Not just emotional support, but practical help. Career guidance, legal advice, financial planning. A community that lifts them up instead of tearing them down. And you think you're the right person to create this support system? I know I am. I opened my portfolio. I've spent the past 2 weeks interviewing local women, gathering data on what they need most. I've identified potential partners, created a business plan, and found an affordable space. What I need is someone who believes in this vision as much as I do. Eric leaned forward, studying my materials. This is impressive work for 2 weeks. Spite is an excellent motivator, I said before I could stop myself. He laughed, actually laughed, and the tension in the room broke. You know what? He closed the portfolio. I like you, Blair. You're not here playing the victim. You're channeling your pain into purpose. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Sarah, can you bring in the standard grant paperwork? My heart stopped. Does this mean... It means I'm willing to take a chance on you. Initial funding for 1 year with quarterly reviews. He smiled. Don't make me regret this. I won't, I promised, my hands shaking as I accepted the paperwork from his assistant. Later that night, as I sat on my sister's couch sharing the news, my phone lit up with a text from Travis. Can we talk? I showed Nadine the message. What are you going to say? She asked. I deleted the message without responding. Nothing. I've got better things to do than talk to him. I've got an advocacy program to build. Nadine raised her wine glass. To new beginnings? To new beginnings, I agreed, clinking glasses. And to karma being a patient friend. The electrical system needs a complete overhaul, the contractor said, shining his flashlight around the community center's dim interior. And don't get me started on the plumbing. I scribbled notes furiously. How long would the renovations take? 3 months minimum, but when it's done, he gestured around the space, You could fit at least 4 office spaces, a conference room, and still have room for group sessions in the main area. Perfect. I was already imagining it. Women gathering here, finding support, building each other up. Send me the quote by Friday? After he left, I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor, spreading out my papers. The grant from Eric would cover renovations and initial staffing, but we'd need more for long-term sustainability. My phone buzzed. Dad. Hey, sweetheart, got time for lunch? 20 minutes later, I slid into our favorite diner booth. Dad was already there, reading glasses perched on his nose as he studied the menu he'd memorized years ago. You look tired, he said by way of greeting. Thanks, Dad. You really know how to make a girl feel special. He smiled, reaching across to squeeze my hand. You know what I mean? Are you sleeping? I'm fine, just busy with the program launch. I picked up my menu, though we both knew I'd order the same turkey club I always did. How's Mom? Still plotting Travis's demise, though now she's moved on to elaborate scenarios involving public humiliation rather than actual murder, so I'd call that progress. I couldn't help but laugh. And how are you handling it all? He set down his menu, looking at me seriously. I'm proud of you, kiddo. Instead of falling apart, you're building something meaningful. Dad. My throat tightened. Your mother wants revenge. I get that. But what you're doing, that's real power. The waitress arrived to take our orders, giving me time to compose myself. As she walked away, Dad cleared his throat. There is something you should know, though. I ran into Peyton at the grocery store yesterday. She mentioned something about Layla. My stomach clenched. What about her? Apparently things aren't as rosy as they seemed. Travis has been, well, being Travis. Meaning? Working late, missing dates, the same stuff he did with you toward the end. I stirred my water with my straw, watching the ice cubes swirl. Karma's not wasting any time, is she? Apparently not. Dad paused as our food arrived. How does that make you feel? Honestly, nothing. I took a bite of my sandwich. I'm too busy to care about their drama. My phone lit up with a text from Annika. Can we meet? Need to talk about the program. And other things. Speaking of drama, I showed Dad the message. Are you going to meet her? I think I have to. She's been supportive, and she could be valuable to the program with her social work background. Later that afternoon, I met Annika at a small coffee shop across town. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her cup sleeve. Thanks for meeting me, she started. I wanted to talk about potentially volunteering with the program, but also... She took a deep breath. Layla's miserable. Not my problem. I know, but she's realizing what a mistake she made. Travis is, well, being Travis. I couldn't help but laugh. You're the second person to say that today. He's already showing his true colors. Missing dates, always working late, flirting with his secretary. Again, not my problem. I pulled out my program materials. Now, about volunteering. Blair, wait. Annika touched my arm. I know you don't want to hear this, but Layla's talking about leaving him. I set down my papers. After destroying my marriage and turning our family upside down, she's what? Having second thoughts? She knows she messed up, badly, but maybe this could be an opportunity, for the program, I mean. Her story could help other women. You want me to use my cousin's affair and subsequent regret as a cautionary tale for the program? Annika nodded hesitantly. I sat back, considering. It was a compelling idea, from a purely strategic standpoint. But was I ready to face Layla, to hear her story? I'll think about it, I said finally. But first, let's talk about how you can help with the program launch. We're planning a community needs assessment next week. As I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the image of Layla, realizing too late that she'd traded one version of Travis for another. Part of me wanted to gloat, to revel in their misery, but a smaller, quieter part wondered if there might be something more powerful in turning their mistake into a force for good. I pulled into my driveway, decision made. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's growth. You invited who to the family dinner? Nadine's voice reached a pitch only dogs could hear. Layla, I repeated, sorting through paint samples for the community center. And before you freak out, too late, Nadine paced my living room. Have you lost your mind? Mom will literally murder her with the good silverware. Mom knows she's coming. Dad's handling it. Oh, well, if Dad's handling it. Nadine collapsed onto my couch. Why are you doing this? I set down the paint samples. Because Annika's right. Layla's story could help other women. And I hesitated. Maybe it's time to stop letting this tear our family apart. That's very mature of you, Nadine said suspiciously. What's the real reason? You'll see at dinner. Sunday dinner arrived with its usual chaos. Mom stress-cooked enough food for an army, Dad played peacekeeper, and Nadine texted me updates from the kitchen. Mom stabbing potatoes like they personally betrayed her. I arrived early to help set up, finding Annika already there. Layla's nervous, she whispered as we set the table. Like, throwing up, nervous? Good, I said, then caught myself. Never mind. The doorbell rang. Mom's wooden spoon clattered against the pot. I'm not answering it. I will, I said, surprising everyone. Layla stood on the porch, looking smaller than I remembered. No designer dress today, just jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Hi, she said softly. Come in. I stepped aside. Everyone's in the kitchen. The silence that fell when Layla entered was deafening. Mom gripped her wooden spoon like a weapon. Dad cleared his throat. Well, he said too brightly, shall we eat? Dinner was excruciating. Forks scraped plates. Someone coughed. Mom aggressively passed rolls. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. So, Layla, how's Travis? She flinched. I wouldn't know. We broke up last week. Mom's roll stopped halfway to her mouth. Nadine choked on her wine. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. I caught him with his secretary. Layla's laugh was hollow. Apparently, I should have seen it coming. Once a cheater. Oh, honey, Mom said, maternal instinct temporarily overriding anger. That must have been awful. I deserved it, Layla whispered. What goes around comes around, right? No one deserves that, I said, surprising myself. Which is why I asked you here tonight. All eyes turned to me. The Women's Advocacy Program is launching next month. We're focusing on helping women rebuild their lives after setbacks, divorce, career changes, bad relationships. I took a deep breath. I think your story could help others avoid the same mistakes. You want me to what? Stand up and tell everyone how I destroyed my cousin's marriage and got my karmic payback? I want you to help other women understand their worth, to recognize red flags, to know they deserve better than being someone's second choice. Tears spilled down Layla's cheeks. Why would you want to help me after what I did? Because holding on to anger is exhausting, and because sometimes the best way to heal is to help others heal too. Mom set down her spoon. Blair's right. What you did was terrible, but wallowing in it won't help anyone. Does this mean you'll stop plotting her death? Dad asked hopefully. We'll see, Mom sniffed, but I caught her small smile. Later, as everyone helped clean up, my phone buzzed with a text from Eric. Local news wants to do a story on the program launch. Interested? Everything okay? Nadine asked, loading the dishwasher. Better than okay. I showed her the text. The program's getting attention. Real attention. You know who's not going to like that? Nadine grinned. Travis. Travis doesn't get a vote anymore. Layla appeared in the doorway. I'll do it. I'll share my story at the launch. Maybe it'll help someone else avoid my mistakes. Thank you, I said. But Layla, this doesn't fix everything between us. I know. She twisted her hands together. But it's a start, right? From the living room, we heard Mom's voice rise. And another thing. Who does Travis think he is? Moving on to his secretary. That boy never did have the sense God gave a goose. Mom, Dad's patient voice responded, I thought we agreed to let it go. I'll let it go when I'm dead, Mark. Nadine, Layla, and I caught each other's eyes and burst out laughing. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And sometimes, that's enough. As everyone left that night, I couldn't help but smile. The program was gaining momentum, family wounds were slowly healing, and karma was doing her thing. Travis wouldn't know what hit him when the news story broke. And we're rolling in 3, 2, 1. The news reporter smiled professionally at the camera. I'm here with Blair Rogers, founder of the Rising Phoenix Women's Advocacy Program, which opens its doors next week. Blair, what inspired you to start this initiative? I sat straight in my chair, wearing the power suit Eric had insisted I buy for press appearances. Sometimes life hands you a moment where you can either break down or break through. This program was my breakthrough. Sources tell us your own experience with divorce influenced this project? Yes, I said carefully. But this isn't about one person's story. It's about creating a support system for women facing all kinds of transitions. The interview continued smoothly until the reporter dropped her bomb. And how do you respond to rumors that your ex-husband's new girlfriend, your cousin, will be speaking at the launch event? I kept my smile steady. Every story matters, even the uncomfortable ones, especially the uncomfortable ones. After the cameras stopped rolling, Eric appeared at my side. Perfectly handled. The nomination committee will love it. Nomination committee? For the Women in Leadership Award, I submitted your name last week. He straightened his tie. The ceremony's next month. Before I could respond, Peyton burst into the room. Blair, we have a situation. Travis is here. My stomach dropped. Here? Now? He's in the lobby. Says he needs to talk to you. Eric stepped forward. Want me to handle it? No, I said, standing. I've got this. Travis stood by the reception desk, looking exactly as I remembered, yet somehow different. Less intimidating. Smaller, somehow. Blair, he started, taking a step forward. This is a private building, Travis. You can't just show up here. I saw the news preview. He ran a hand through his hair. You're really going to let Layla tell everyone what happened? Afraid of bad publicity? My firm's partners won't like it. Your firm's partners? I laughed. That's what you're worried about? Blair, please. We can work something out. Maybe I could make a donation to your program in exchange for discretion? Let me get this straight, I said, my voice rising. You want to buy my silence, after everything? I'm trying to protect my career. Like you protected our marriage? The words shot out before I could stop them. You know what, Travis? This isn't about you. It's not even about me anymore. It's about helping women recognize their worth before they waste 15 years with someone like you. Is everything okay here? Eric appeared at my side, his presence solid and reassuring. Travis's eyes darted between us. Who's this? Eric Henry, major donor and board member, Eric said smoothly. And you are... leaving, I cut in. He was just leaving. Travis's jaw clenched. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I turned to Eric. Would you mind walking me back to my office? We should discuss that nomination. As we walked away, I heard Travis call out, You've changed. I looked back over my shoulder. Thank you. In my office, I collapsed into my chair. Well, that was fun. You handled it beautifully, Eric said, perching on my desk, though I might be biased. Biased? I find I'm becoming increasingly biased where you're concerned. He met my eyes. Would it be completely inappropriate if I asked you to dinner? My heart skipped. Yes. No. I took a breath. Dinner would be nice. Tomorrow? After the final renovation inspection? It's a date. The words slipped out before I could catch them. His smile widened. Yes, it is. After he left, Peyton appeared in my doorway. So, Eric Henry, huh? Don't start. I'm just saying he's successful, handsome, and he looks at you like you hung the moon. He's also on my board of directors. A minor detail. She dropped into a chair. So, what are you wearing tomorrow? Nothing, because it's not happening. I can't date my biggest donor. Why not? You're not that woman anymore, Blair. The one who plays it safe, who worries about what everyone else thinks. She was right. I wasn't that woman anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Layla. Travis came by my place too. Tried to convince me not to speak at the launch. I told him to go to hell. I showed Peyton the message. "Look at that," she grinned. "Your cousin grew a backbone." Maybe we all did. So, about that dinner outfit? I laughed, pulling up my calendar. Help me pick something. But Peyton, let's keep this quiet for now. The last thing I need is Mom playing wedding planner again. Deal. But when you win that leadership award next month, you better let him be your date. I thought about Eric's kind eyes, about Travis's diminished presence, about how far I'd come from that woman in the anniversary dress. Maybe I will, I said. Maybe I will. The annual family reunion buzzed with tension. Aunt Martha's famous potato salad sat untouched as relatives clustered in whispered groups, stealing glances at me, then at Layla, then back again. We'd agreed to attend separately, her in the afternoon, me in the evening, but plans changed when the local news crew asked to cover the event. Ready for this? Nadine appeared at my elbow, clutching a glass of wine. Define ready. I smoothed down my dress for the 100th time. In 30 minutes, I'd be announcing the program's success to our entire extended family, and the evening news. Mom's already had 3 glasses of wine, Nadine reported. Dad's stress-eating cocktail weenies, and you'll never guess who just showed up. My stomach dropped. Travis? With his secretary-turned-girlfriend. Bold move, considering half the people here still want him dead. I scanned the crowd until I spotted him. Travis, looking uncomfortable in a polo shirt that was slightly too tight. A petite blonde hovering nervously beside him. What's he doing here? Uncle Rob invited him. Apparently, they're still golf buddies. Fantastic. I checked my phone. Another text from Eric. On my way. Traffic's terrible. Save me some of that famous potato salad? Despite everything, I smiled. Is that Eric? Nadine waggled her eyebrows. How was dinner last week? Perfect, I admitted. And then the next dinner was perfect too, and the one after that. Look at you, glowing like a teenager, she nudged me. Think Travis has noticed? I don't care if... I stopped as Layla approached, looking uncertain. Hey, she said softly. The news crew wants to do a pre-interview with both of us. Something about the power of forgiveness angle. Now? She nodded. They're setting up by the oak tree. That's where Travis proposed, Nadine muttered. Even better, I said grimly. Let's give them what they want. The reporter positioned us carefully, the ancient oak tree framing the shot. Through the viewfinder, I could see Travis watching, his new girlfriend forgotten at his side. So, ladies, the reporter began, tell us about this unique partnership. Layla spoke first, her voice steady. I made a terrible mistake. I hurt someone I loved, destroyed relationships, and learned the hard way that karma is real. And Blair, you've turned this personal tragedy into triumph? I turned pain into purpose, I corrected. The Rising Phoenix program isn't about my story. It's about every woman's story, including Layla's. Speaking of stories, the reporter smiled, I understand congratulations are in order. The Women in Leadership Award nomination is quite an honor. From the corner of my eye, I saw Travis straighten up. Yes, it is, I said. The ceremony's next month, and we're hoping... Blair! A familiar voice called out. Eric jogged up, slightly out of breath. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. The reporter's eyes lit up. And who's this? Eric Henry, he said smoothly, sliding an arm around my waist. Board member, donor, and very proud boyfriend. Travis's cocktail glass shattered on the patio. Cut! The reporter called out, delighted by the drama. Can we get that entrance again? Actually, I said, I think we have something better. Layla, ready to tell your story? She nodded, straightening her shoulders. Ready. For the next hour, we talked about the program, about healing, about turning mistakes into missions. The camera caught every moment, including Travis's hasty exit with his girlfriend, and the way Eric never left my side. That was amazing, Eric whispered as the crew packed up. You're amazing. Get a room, Nadine called out, passing by with more wine. Mom appeared, flushed with pride and probably wine. Blair, honey, the program sounds wonderful, and Eric, she turned to him, you're coming to Sunday dinner next week, no arguments. Yes, ma'am, he grinned. Did you see Travis's face? Layla asked quietly. When Eric showed up? I was too busy looking at Eric, I admitted. That's how I know you've really moved on. She squeezed my hand. Thank you. For everything. The sun was setting as the reunion wound down. Eric and I sat under the oak tree, sharing the last piece of Aunt Martha's potato salad. So, he said, about that award ceremony next month? Yes? I was thinking, maybe we could make it a double celebration? My heart stopped. What do you mean? He pulled out a small velvet box. I'm not proposing, not yet. But this is a promise ring. A promise that when you're ready, when it's right. Yes, I whispered, letting him slip the delicate ring onto my finger. When it's right. From across the yard, I heard Mom's delighted squeal. Nadine was probably already planning the wedding. And somewhere, Travis was realizing exactly what he'd lost. But sitting there, under the oak tree with Eric, none of that mattered. What mattered was that I'd found my strength, my purpose, and maybe even my happy ending. The Women in Leadership Award ceremony glittered with possibility. Hundreds of people filled the hotel ballroom, their excited chatter mixing with the soft, classical music playing overhead. Eric squeezed my hand under the table. Nervous? He whispered. Terrified, I admitted. What if I trip on stage? Then I'll trip too, make it look intentional. Peyton leaned across the table. Heads up, Travis just walked in. I refused to turn around. With the secretary? No, Nadine chimed in, not even trying to be subtle about her rubbernecking. He's alone, and he looks rough. Can we not? I adjusted my speech cards. This night isn't about him. You're right, Mom said, reaching over to straighten my necklace. It's about my brilliant daughter who turned heartbreak into hope for hundreds of women. Speaking of which, Eric nodded toward the stage. I think they're ready to start. The lights dimmed as the MC took the stage. I half listened to the opening remarks, my mind on the 50 women from our program sitting at sponsored tables throughout the room. Women who'd found their strength, just like I had. And now, the MC announced, to present the Women in Leadership Award, please welcome Layla Schmidt. My head snapped up. This wasn't part of the plan. Layla walked onto the stage, looking elegant in a simple black dress. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted the microphone. A year ago, she began, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I betrayed someone I loved, someone who had always been there for me. I thought I was choosing happiness, but I was really choosing destruction. The room fell silent. But my cousin Blair? She chose something else. She chose to transform her pain into purpose. While I was learning hard lessons about karma and consequences, she was building something beautiful. I felt Eric's hand tighten around mine. The Rising Phoenix program has helped dozens of women rebuild their lives. Women leaving abusive relationships. Women starting over after divorce. Women like me, who had to hit rock bottom before they could rise. Tears pricked at my eyes. So it is my profound honor to present this year's Women in Leadership Award to my cousin, my inspiration, and yes, my friend, Blair Rogers. The room erupted in applause as I made my way to the stage. Layla hugged me tight, whispering, I hope this was okay. I took the podium, looking out over the crowd. I spotted Travis near the back, looking smaller than I remembered, but my eyes were drawn instead to Eric's proud smile, to my family's beaming faces, to the women whose lives we'd touched. Thank you, I began. A wise person once told me that sometimes life hands you a moment where you can either break down or break through. Standing here tonight, I see so many women who chose to break through. I shared stories of our program participants, the domestic violence survivor who now counsels others, the divorced mother who started her own business, the young woman who left a toxic relationship and found her voice. But this award isn't just about me, I continued. It's about every person who supported this dream. My family, who showed me that love is stronger than betrayal. Eric, who believed in me when I was still learning to believe in myself. I paused, finding Travis's eyes in the crowd. And yes, it's even about those who hurt us, because sometimes our greatest pain leads to our greatest purpose. The Rising Phoenix program isn't just about helping women survive. It's about helping them soar. The standing ovation that followed was deafening. As I returned to my seat, Eric pulled me close, kissing me softly. "Proud of you," he murmured. Later, during the reception, Travis approached our table. He looked uncertain, almost fragile. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You've done something amazing here." "Thank you," I replied, surprised to feel nothing but calm. "How are you?" "Honestly, starting over? The secretary, that didn't work out." "I heard," I said. "There's a men's support group that meets at the center on Thursdays. If you're interested in real change." He nodded slowly. "Maybe I will." "And Blair? I really am sorry. For everything." "I know," I said. "But I'm not." As he walked away, Eric wrapped his arms around me. "Ready to go home?" "Almost." I turned to face him. "Remember that promise ring?" "Of course." "I'm ready, when you are." His face lit up. "Yeah?" "Yeah." From across the room, I heard Mom's excited squeal. Somehow she always knew, and Nadine's delighted laughter. Layla caught my eye and smiled, genuine happiness replacing the guilt that had haunted her for so long. The Rising Phoenix program had started as my revenge against betrayal, but somewhere along the way, it had become something more. It had become my redemption, my purpose, my future, and standing there in Eric's arms, surrounded by family and friends and the women we'd helped, I knew this was just the beginning. "If you cry, I'll cry, and then my makeup will run," Nadine warned, adjusting my veil in the church dressing room. "I'm not crying," I lied, blinking rapidly. "I'm just thinking about how far we've come." "Save the reflection for your vows," Mom bustled in, carrying my bouquet. "Though I still think you should have let me add more flowers to the centerpieces." "Mom, everything is perfect." I turned to the mirror, hardly recognizing myself in the elegant white dress. "Even the centerpieces." A soft knock at the door revealed Layla and Annika. "The program participants are all seated," Layla reported. "Front 3 rows, just like you wanted." "And Travis?" Nadine asked hesitantly. "In the back with his new girlfriend," Annika said. "The counselor from the men's support group? They actually met through the program." I smiled, remembering his nervous phone call asking if it would be okay to bring her. He'd been attending the support group regularly, working on himself, learning to be better. It felt right having him here, witnessing this new beginning. "5 minutes," Peyton called through the door. Dad appeared, looking dapper in his tuxedo. "Ready, kiddo?" "Almost." I turned to Layla. "Thank you for everything." She hugged me carefully, mindful of the dress. "Thank you for showing me how to be strong." The wedding march began, and everyone scrambled into position. As Dad and I waited behind the closed doors, he squeezed my hand. "You know," he said softly, "sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us to the best things." The doors opened, and Eric's face at the altar made everything else fade away. He looked at me like I was his miracle, his eyes shining with tears he didn't bother hiding. Our vows were personal, honest, real. Eric spoke about finding love when he least expected it, about watching me turn pain into purpose. I talked about learning to trust again, about building something beautiful from broken pieces. "The Rising Phoenix program taught me that every ending is just a beginning in disguise," I said, my voice steady despite the tears. "Eric, you didn't just believe in my dream, you helped make it soar, and I promise to spend the rest of my life soaring with you." The reception was a beautiful chaos of family, friends, and program participants. Mom danced with everyone, Dad gave an emotional speech that had the whole room crying, and Nadine caught the bouquet, though I'm pretty sure she tackled someone for it. "May I have this dance?" Travis's voice surprised me during a slow song. I glanced at Eric, who nodded encouragingly. "You look happy," Travis said as we swayed awkwardly. "Really happy." "I am." "The program, it changed my life too, you know. Made me face some hard truths about myself." "I know. Sarah told me you've been helping other men recognize their toxic behaviors." He smiled slightly. "Karma works in mysterious ways, doesn't it?" "It does." I spotted Sarah watching us, her expression gentle. She's good for you. She is. And Eric, he's everything I should have been. No, I said firmly. He's exactly who he is, and I'm exactly who I am. We can't change the past, Travis. We can only learn from it. The song ended, and Eric appeared at my side. Mind if I steal my wife back? Wife. The word sent tingles through me. Later, as Eric and I swayed to our last dance, I looked around the room. Mom and Dad, still so in love after 30 years. Nadine flirting with Eric's best man. Layla and Annika laughing with program participants. Travis and Sarah, heads bent close together, starting their own story of redemption. What are you thinking? Eric murmured in my ear. I'm thinking about phoenixes, I said. About how sometimes we have to burn everything down to build something better. And did you? Build something better? I thought about the hundreds of women we'd helped, the lives we'd changed, the strength we'd found together. I thought about the man holding me, who saw my broken pieces and called them beautiful. We all did, I said. Every single one of us. The music faded, but Eric kept holding me. Ready for our next adventure? I looked up at him, at the future shining in his eyes. With you, always. As we left the reception, under a shower of rose petals, I caught one last glimpse of my family. All of them. Even the ones who had hurt me. Even the ones I had to forgive to find my happiness. They were all part of my story, my rising, my triumph. And as Eric and I drove away toward our honeymoon, toward our future, I knew that some endings aren't really endings at all. They're just the first page of a better story. A story of strength, of redemption, of rising from the ashes again and again until you finally learn to fly.